Hi guys, it's Sam from Sammy's Reviews, and in today's video I wanna talk about my journey with Stephen King, and I wanna show you my collection of Stephen King because I have been collecting Stephen King novels, essays, short stories for a couple of years now, and I believe I have some pretty cool and unique editions of some of his novels, and I'm gonna attempt to guide you through the Stephen King universe bit by bit. Now let's just put it out in the air that I have not read lots of Stephen King novels. I've only read around 12-13 novels by him, and this may seem like a lot, okay, and it is a lot, but compared to the amount of novels that this guy has written and published, it's kind of nothing. He has an infinite amount of books published, and it's kind of impossible to read them all. Even if you're 90 years old and you decided to read one Stephen book a day, you can make it by that time. However, I believe I've read enough Stephen King novels, the popular and the not so popular books of his, to build an understanding of how his writing style works, how he constructs his stories, and what makes him so special. I mean, you gotta question, why does someone write this much books, and why they're all New York Times bestsellers, and why they're all almost adapted to movies with very big budget and TV shows with very big budget as well. And before reading Stephen King, I was kind of intimidated. I was intimidated for several reasons. First off, he has, as I said, infinite amount of books out there, and when you start to read his novels, you kind of don't know where to start, so you search for that and you find that The Shining or The Stand or Salem's Lot or It, they are all his most popular novels. But then you find out that these novels are over 1,000 pages long, and some of them are over 1,500 pages long, so you kind of get taken aback, and you kind of build these ideas that it's hard to read, or it's heavy, or it's dense, and maybe it's not the right time to read it. And actually Stephen King has very little amount of books that are under 500 pages. Even his novellas are like 100 and maybe a couple hundreds pages long, so he's kind of crazy about writing. And this is how my journey with Stephen King started. I wanted to break the ice, and actually the first big huge book I read was It, back in 2017, and I believe that it broke my fear of big books and broke my fear of Stephen King. Before reading it, I was wondering, how can he hold my attention span that long? I mean, what kind of story needs 1,500 pages to be told? But after reading it, if it was 3,000 pages long, I would have read it. I was also intimidated by Stephen King because by now Stephen King is a common knowledge. You've heard of Stephen King, you've read by Stephen King, and you've definitely seen a movie that's adapted from a Stephen King novel. Every single year there's movie adaptations and re-adaptations of movies and books that's written by Stephen King. Great movies such as The Shining, The Mist, Green Miles, It, Carrie, and of course The Shawshank Redemption, they are all adaptations of Stephen King novels. I was also scared of his writing style. I felt like maybe because his books are so big, they're gonna be like, I don't know, a War and Peace sort of writing style. But actually, after I read It, I'm here to just tell you these are all misconceptions. His writing style is so engaging, so easy to get into, and his books are made to be read by normal readers. I'm here to tell you, wherever you are in your spectrum of your reading journey, whether you are an avid reader or whether you've only read one book a year, Stephen King can comfortably and easily fit in your reading schedule. And the only way I could face my fear of Stephen King and of big books is to go on this suicide journey of reading It as my first Stephen King novel, and I want to tell you that I've only read it in 3 weeks. This may seem a lot, but it's 1,500 page novel, and it's so engaging, so easy to get into. Its writing style is so engaging, the characters are so layered, the story is so complicated, and the sense of place, Derry, is uncomparable. Also, before I show you my Stephen King collection, I want to tell you that Stephen King novels are so diverse. He writes all genres and all sorts of ideas and all sorts of stories. Usually when you read a few books by the same author, you kind of see the similarities between his novels and what sort of genre he likes to write. But with Stephen King, you can find fantasy and thriller and science fiction and horror and romance and whatever floats your boat. It's a very, very broad spectrum. And without further ado, here are my Stephen King collection. Hi guys, it's me, and here is my Stephen King shelf. It goes for a bit longer, but I want the camera to stay here so it can have better lighting. Anyway, I'm gonna start with one of my most valuable possessions. I have the audiobook of The Night Shift, which is something I don't usually find. I don't think I've ever found it except that time in a used bookstore. Let me show you from the inside. It has all these CDs. Pretty freaking cool. I also have this Vintage Nightmares and Dreamscapes book. Looks very good up close. You can see like all this shimmer and shine. I also have this copy from 11/22/63, and I also have another copy. Wait, let me show you. Here are the two copies of 11/22/63. I prefer this one because it's much floppier, and it's like it flops around, but this one is a bit more stiff. Funny enough, I've had these two copies for the longest time. I bought it probably the year it came out, but I never got around to reading it, although lots of my friends recommended them. However, I finally got through 11/22/63 just the last week. I finished it and I'm ready to watch the TV show. I also have this cool copy of The Green Mile. I bought this with a bunch of other Stephen King novels, which I'm gonna show you right now. Also, there is Mr. Mercedes, which I wanted for the longest time. I also bought it right after I saw this scene where Stephen King is actually in the TV show, and that was freaking cool. I also got different seasons along with Mr. Mercedes and The Green Mile, so that was a bit of a Stephen King haul. Finally, I also have Bazaar of Bad Dreams, which has a gorgeous cover, but I did want to get the hardcover, but it was sold out at that time. But this one looks cool as well. It looks super colorful and I love the font that's been used. I also have this vintage copy of Pet Sematary. I love this cover. It looks super awesome. I got it from an online used bookstore and I really like how beat up it looks. I kind of like that with Stephen King books. Although I usually like to take care very well of my books and my close friends know that, but for some reason I prefer Stephen King books that has been around for a very long time. It gives it sort of an identity or personality. I also have this huge, let me show you how huge it is. Huge copy of The Stand. I actually special ordered this one along with Salem's Lot, which is right there. We're gonna get to it soon. I special ordered it because for the life of me I could not find any Stephen King novels that are floppy enough to read, because as you can see that's a hefty book. I could not just read it in a stiff form. I also have this beautiful shining copy of Dr. Sleep. I believe I swapped this book with someone for Marie Lou's The Young Elites. I also have this beautiful copy of Revival. I used to be obsessed with the hardcover one, but it was released way after the release of this copy for some reason, so I wanted to get this one. Another beautiful beat-up novel of Stephen King. That's exactly the novel of this audiobook, which I showed you at the beginning of the video. Here's the floppy edition of Salem's Lot, which I got with The Shining. Looks super beautiful as usual. Now here's a funny story about this book specifically. I was obsessed with this book. I wanted to get my hands on it for the longest time. I have searched for the audiobook, I've searched for the hardcover, I've searched for any edition I could get my hands on, to the extent that I wanted to contact a bookstore specifically to get me this book. And funny enough, a week later after I ordered it, I found it randomly for the cheapest price ever in a used bookstore. Another one of Stephen King's classics. It's the same edition as Salem's Lot and The Stand. They look beautiful. I really recommend these editions of Stephen King if you're a paperback fan, because they're really floppy, they're really beautiful. And actually, funny enough, I did not get this one with the rest of the matching covers. I actually bought it from someone who was selling it on Facebook randomly. Here we have Blockade Billy by Stephen King. Actually, funny story, I did not know that this is a Stephen King novel. I have not read it. I haven't seen anyone who read it or own it. The very first time I've seen it was in a bookstore and I thought I was getting scammed. I thought this is just a book about Stephen King and not by Stephen King. But I found it in this weird edition. It's not hardcover, it's not paperback, it's something in between. Pretty cool. I'm so glad I got it. Here we have the iconic and my favorite Stephen King cover, Carrie. I love this edition. It's super beat up, it's super tiny, and it has yellow pages from the inside. It gives it all sort of spookiness while reading it. Here's the first novel by Stephen King as Richard Bachman. It's called Roadwork, and before getting into this book, you have to know that the introduction has a lot of spoilers for the actual book because it's written way after its release. It assumes that you've already read this book, so look out for that. This is probably my next Stephen King read. It's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. It's a beautiful cover. I ordered it from the same used bookstore that I order most of my books. Now let's move on to these beasts. Here comes the first beast. We have Sleeping Beauties by both Stephen King and his son Owen King. I have not read these short stories, sadly, but I'm planning to very soon. It's pretty chunky. Look at this. But it's nothing compared to the actual other books. Wait till you see Under the Dome in hardcover. Oh my god, is it heavy. Here we have a very unique, extra large paperback edition of the third novel in the Dark Tower series, The Drawing of the Three. I randomly saw this book in a cafe and I asked if I could purchase it, and it was very, very, very super cheap. Here we have a similar cover, which I found in the same cafe, of the fourth book in the Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass. I actually own the same book in a small mass market edition, but I cannot find it at all. I've searched my entire bookshelf. Here we have The Wolves of the Kala. Hope I'm pronouncing this right because I have not read the Dark Tower series. I hate to admit that. It's super duper chunky. It's so heavy as well, and it has cool artwork. Let me show you. Check this out, that looks awesome. Also this one, pretty cool. Here is an interesting story about these three beautiful hardcover Stephen King novels. I have not seen these around ever, only on an Instagram used bookstore that I randomly stumbled upon, and even after I ordered them, I was in denial. I felt like they were never gonna arrive. I can never get my hands on them because here we only have mostly paperback editions of Stephen King. It's very hard to get your hands on a hardcover one, and getting three of these at the very same time seems like a dream. Let me guide you through them. There's this beautiful edition of Cell, and you can never tell they are used. Now this is The Beast to End All Beasts. This book is enormous. It's ginormous. Oh my god. I have a paperback edition of this book here, but look at this. I can barely hold it. Let me check how big is this edition. So actually it's not that big. It's only 1,000 pages, which I mean this one is, where is it? I mean The Shining is bigger than this, but this is too heavy to be 1,000 pages only. From the very same bookstore which I got the three beautiful hardcovers of Stephen King, I got this very unique, never heard of before, in my opinion, a Marvel graphic novel written by Stephen King, and it's called N. Have you heard of that? Let me know because I have never heard of it. And it has a beautiful back. Let me show you some of the illustrations inside. Check this out. That's super awesome. Here we have some awesome artwork as well. And here we have my very first Stephen King read. It's It, and it's enormous. That's a 1,500 page edition of It. It's all bookmarked by me. And let me show you something cool. I have a beautiful The Shining pattern on a bookmark that my friend gave me as a present. It looks very beautiful. And I got this very ugly edition of Under the Dome in a book fair, probably like 5-6 years ago. It looks super ugly, and it's in a very bad condition, and it's not that floppy, it's actually stiff. I don't really like it. I'm so glad I have this hardcover edition. Here we have The Outsider, which is my latest Stephen King purchase. I purchased it a few months ago and it looks super pretty. Whew, only 4 to go. We have the very first installment of the Dark Tower series, The Gunslinger. Now, it may sound super easy to get into, it's super short, but wait till you see the 4th and the 5th and the 6th novel in the series. They are hefty as hell. But I will read this series, I promise. Here we have a very bright edition of From Book 8, and it has like this pretty cutout in the novel. so you can see that. Actually, a funny story about that. When I was listening to the discography of Bob Dylan, and he had a song called From a Book 6, and I always thought this novel was called From a Book 6. I was like, oh my god, did Stephen King name one of his novels after a Bob Dylan song? But no, this is From a Book 8, and I was just ignorant. Here we have what's definitely my next read. I know I said I'm gonna read The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, but this is probably my next read. I've been recommended this book ever since I started my journey with Stephen King, and I'm so happy I got my hands on it. I only bought it a few months ago, and I'm super excited to get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our very last Stephen King novel, Danse Macabre, and I found this super duper beat up edition of Danse Macabre at a book fair, and I thought this is a novel, but actually it's not. It's also something like on writing here. Haven't read it, but I'm gonna be reading it. So by that we conclude all of my Stephen King shelf. I hope you enjoy it. This is only partially some of the many, numerous, infinite amount of books Stephen King has written, and he keeps on going. The man never stops writing, and I'm never gonna stop collecting his books, so it's a win-win situation. Hi guys, I'm back, and thank you so much for watching this video. Have you started your journey with Stephen King? Where are you in your journey in Stephen King? Do you have any advice for someone who has not started Stephen King before? Thank you so much for watching, and see you next video. Bye!